Hey, welcome back to the podcast, the Evil Dungeon Master Universe podcast. I'm your host, the Evil Dungeon Master Vince, and today is Friday. Finally, the weekend is upon us. We have a 3-day weekend here in the States. I will be not gaming this weekend, unfortunately, but I will be spending time with the family and reading my books and writing stuff up and doing a lot of things that I don't normally do. Just relaxing this weekend. Hopefully, you will too. Head over to theevildm.com for my website to check out what I'm doing. Ask the DM at theevildm.com is my website address. Hopefully, you're enjoying the podcast as we're continuing along with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, something I love talking about. I guess we'll continue this along the way to see how well we do. Once I see the numbers declining and people getting bored of the topic, I may change. I don't know. It seems I get more downloads when I talk about AD&D because there's been a resurgence again of older editions of Dungeons and Dragons. I've noticed since the announcement of 6E or 1D&D or D&D 2024 with their new awful artwork and change of things. Wizards of the Coast keeps driving people away. But I saw some great comments online from a person who said, who cares what Wizards of the Coast is doing? If you have your edition of D&D, just play your edition of D&D. And my edition of D&D obviously is AD&D. I will play some 3rd edition if, it comes down to it. But I prefer AD&D 1E or just AD&D over anything else. So today, I want to flip back open the Unearthed Arcana book and talk about that again. Because there's something on page 109 that I often forget about using. And it's actually pretty interesting because it talks about disarming. And it's a lot of times I've come to games where I have players who take their character and want to disarm a foe or want to disarm the big bad or, tackle someone or do something disarming wise. And here we have some rules for it in the Unearthed Arcana, which I like. So disarming is a form of non-lethal combat that may only be used by fighters, cavaliers, and members of the subclass. So they're setting up for the future, saying if they make any other subclasses a fighter, they could use this. Interesting. Only weapons below, listed in order length, may be used to disarm. Knife, dagger, mace, horseman's mace, short sword, footman's mace, sword, broad, long, falchion, or khopesh. The khopesh sword has a chance of disarming an opponent in its normal mode of use. If the weapon is used intentionally for an attempt to disarm, use the rules given here. All right, so disarming may be only used by a fighter or cavalier wielding a weapon in which he or she has proficiency against an opponent that is likewise using one of the weapons above. Any weapon that requires 2 hands to use can never be affected by this form of attack. Disarming inflicts no damage, but if a successful hit is made, the defender must make a saving throw versus petrification or lose the weapon being used. Superior swordplay has torn the weapon from the opponent's grasp. That's how they're describing it. Interesting. Disarming can only be used against weapons of the same length or shorter. A dagger may disarm someone holding a knife, or a scimitar may disarm someone holding a mace. But a dagger cannot disarm someone with a short sword. So you can't disarm something larger than what you have, only equivalent or lesser size. So a weapon subjected to disarming attack will fall at the owner's feet if the weapon is the same size as the attacker, or 1d10 feet away of smaller size of the weapon which did the disarming, so you can fling it away. The former wielder of the weapon must either take a round to recover the weapon, draw another, or engage in weaponless combat. It is recommended that this form of non-lethal combat only be used if more extensive versions of weaponless combat systems 2 is being employed in gameplay. So, I don't really care what combat system we're using. You can use whatever combat system you want, system 2 or not. I would absolutely employ this into the game and allow this as an option. for regular combat, with the logic that a larger weapon can disarm a lesser weapon or equal size or something like that. Again, two-handed weapons obviously you can't because you have two hands on the weapon. But this is like the kind of the attack with the sword, how they do in like the movies when they attack, and they do that little spinny thing with the sword and flip it out of their hand type thing, and it falls to the ground or falls a couple feet away, and then now the person who got disarmed has to run after it again and try to pick up that weapon. I like it. I do like this, and I often forget about this rule in the back of the book because when Unearthed Arcana is not usually a book that I'm using at the table to start. Whenever I start campaigns, I will start with the core books and then branch out from there and allow more things as the game goes on. That way it keeps it a little more fresh and original. If you just give everything at once, it kind of, I don't know, leaves it feeling a little open and not enough for players. So again, I start with core rules and then start adding things in small, like spells, the gods, the classes, allowing people to move forward as kind of an incentive to keep playing as opposed to just everything up front. Done. Tell me what you think about this. Do you use this disarming method? Do you use a different one? What do you think about the Unearthed Arcana book in general? I like the book overall. I think some of the things are really powerful in it, but I also think they have ways to balance it out a little bit to make it more interesting. I don't know. I like the book. I definitely like the classes in it. Some of them are a little OP, as we talked about the Barbarian yesterday. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And we will see you again next week as we continue along with, I guess, as it's been called, the RFI minis or the RFI babies. I have no idea what you want to call these podcasts. But keep it original, keep it old school. Good night and God bless.